Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you again this week about Vedic astrology and how it affects your life and the lives of us all and the lives of people around the world. Now, we had a rather bad week, especially in places like Turkey, which is experiencing a death rate of about 25,000 people from an earthquake, which is horrible. So again, our thoughts and prayers go out to the people in Turkey, and Syria. Both countries got hit. But this is really a wretched thing to happen to people. We have been warning about earthquakes around the world. I was not as specific as I would have liked to have been, in terms of spotlighting Turkey, but I will be more cognizant of that in this week's broadcast. So let's look at the transit chart, the now chart this week. I'm going to make this a simpler chart than I did last week. So let me go to this one. And I'm also going to look up the chart for the next year, the new moon chart for the next year. And we do have a rather interesting Sun-Saturn conjunction coming up with the Chaitra Shukla chart. It's March 21st. So I'm going to talk about Chaitra Shukla a little bit later. And we are going to have two important eclipses this coming year. So I think one of the things I'll be focusing on is trying to analyze the eclipses probably next week and how those will impact your particular life, your lives, and the lives of people around the world. So let's go right away. By the way, if you want to contact me for reading, I do individual readings. I teach astrology, and I'm also soliciting articles for Saptarishi Astrology. I also teach at the American College of Vedic Astrology, in case you're interested in a more formal course than one-on-one tutoring. But I also tutor one-on-one. In order to get more information about any of these things, contact me at 508-525-0001. You can also email me at either Gary Gomes G. That's my name, Gary Gomes G @gmail.com, or through neivas@comcast.net. Now, so let's look at the chart for this week. Now, keep in mind, let me just see if I can pull it up again. Let's see, now chart. Okay, so that's what I want to focus on. So let me just see if I can pull that up again. Pull that up for you folks. And so we're going to do a share screen. And I'm going to do it a couple of times just because of some problems I've had with Zoom in the past about sharing screens. And I don't want to have you looking at black space for a few minutes. But I think one of the things that we're looking at is, at least in this chart, and I'm going to pull it up again one more time, is three's for good luck. Three's Jupiter's number, so that's why I use it. And I'd like to give you like a little bit of an astrology intro lesson. This will be more fleshed out as we go on. But we always pay attention to where the sun is located in the Vedic chart. Now, in this chart, you really can't see it because I don't have that option open. But right now, Pluto is in the same sign with the sun right now. So that's a disruptive influence, but they're very far apart. Pluto's down here right next to Mercury, and the sun is over here. It's really at the end of Capricorn. Within about 3 days, it'll be fully into Capricorn right next to Saturn. Now, if I were a Western astrologer, which I'm not, I'm primarily worked within the Vedic system for 30 years, although I do know and understand Western astrology. We could look at the Sun Pluto conjunction. I'm sorry, we could look at the Mercury Pluto conjunction and say we're getting news of mass destruction. So that's in line with what is happening. Also on the political front, we're getting some really trying to think of the right word to use. Some real rancor, but also some reversals of some trends we've seen over the past year and a half. And I think one of the things that I would prepare myself is starting to see a desire for reform, but also with this upcoming Sun Saturn conjunction, sort of a reaction. I would say a rightward reaction against some of the more liberal tendencies in society. I'm not saying that to be nasty. I think we are going to see a combination of planets. We see Venus and Jupiter will be in conjunction within about 5 days, and Venus will be exalted. So actually about 5 days, I think people should start feeling pretty good, but they'll also feel very idealistic and very, not really very idealistic, but very interested in fairness, in what an ideal world would look like through their spectrum. Now, depending on your perspective, what one person views as an ideal world will be different from what another person views as an ideal world. But Jupiter's at a pivotal point in the chart. It's really near the end of the signs, and Venus is also near the end of the signs. So I think one of the things I would tend to look for is sort of a pattern where as Sun and Saturn converge, we'll see more focus on reform and on, but also on slowing down progress, slowing down, maybe slowing down the economy, which I've been saying for a while. I don't think that'll really happen until around April, but slowing down the economy, and also maybe the Jupiter and Venus conjunction making us a little bit. The only flaw I ever see with that combination is it makes us too optimistic. When Jupiter and Venus are involved with each other, there's sort of a boundlessness which comes to the fore. So you think anything is possible, and actually that's true. Anything is possible, but you need a foundation of Saturn to make it real, and you need Sun in order to back it up and have the powers that be endorse it. And the Sun-Saturn conjunction will set up, I think, a battle for new technology, re-evaluation of new technology, and also even limitations on technological development. So it's basically what I said before. We're going to see really, I think, over the next couple of years, a sort of a shift from the center. And that doesn't mean, I don't think that means we're going to see the nation polarize as much as move away from conventional political thinking. And that's going to be true on both sides of the spectrum. I think it's a time of challenge for leaders. We'll see new leaders emerge over the next couple of years. And people, and I don't think they'll be the people that we've seen running things for the past 30 years, or the kinds of people we've seen running things for the past 30 years. They'll be different, it'll be new blood. But again, we are going to see this kind of like nip and tug between Sun and Saturn and Aquarius, between this desire to move forward and this desire to figure out ways to concretely make it move forward. And you may even see an entire reevaluation of political systems in many parts of the world. It's not going to be universal, but I think it's going to be pretty a pretty strong movement across the world. So we're starting to see the start of a cycle in which shifts will occur in political power. Now, keep in mind, when I say things like this, everybody assumes it's going to be this great, wonderful thing that everybody's going to be in love with, and that it's going to cause great joy and happiness for everyone. That's not the way these things work. So you'll see some people threatened by their position, doing anything to hold on to their position. This will particularly be true in April through November. But you'll also see an increasing desire for change, an increasing desire for movement, especially on the part of the people over the next couple of years. And the last time Saturn was in Aquarius was in the late 1990s. And we saw a lot of expansion of tech sectors. We saw a lot of introduction of new technology, a lot of expansion. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be identical, because we have Saturn aspecting Jupiter in this chart after April. So Jupiter was in a better position to help us move forward. It was in a better location in the sky to let us move forward. And this combination sort of promises a little bit of, there'll need to be more cleverness, need to be more innovation and independence from traditional means of income and even traditional relations with government. So I wouldn't be really surprised. Now, again, I wouldn't be really surprised to see a lot of government disruptions over the next year. I don't necessarily think they'll be violent. If we have, so I'll talk about this for just a few more minutes, then I'll go into the signs. And over the next week in particular, we do have a lot of planets that are, Mars is in an Earth sign, which is really one of the factors that caused the earthquake in Turkey. But I think the more prevalent cause was the fact that Turkey was going through a sun major planetary period. K2 is really close to the sun in Turkey's chart. And right now, as I'm speaking to you, K2 and Moon are together. So this is, I've heard some estimates indicating that um, the death count could be double what it is right now, which is horrible. But that's that combination of essentially K2 and the Moon. But essentially K2 obstructed the sun in this chart. When K2 comes close to planets in natal charts, it causes some kind of disruption, some kind of dismay. And K2 tends to wipe things out. Now, it's again, as a bit of an overgeneralization, but it does tend to clear paths away. So if K2 is close to a planet in your birth chart, it'll cause a lot of disruption for that, or for people connected with that particular planet. It'll cause some issues with with the health of those individuals. It could mean those individuals are going in for surgery, so it's not necessarily always detrimental, but it's kind of a dangerous time, particularly at this degree of Libra, which is in Swati Nakshatra, which tends to scatter things. Rahu is, I have to look carefully, Rahu's in Ashvini Nakshatra, or Ashvini Nakshatra. And Ashvini is a desire for rebirth or rejuvenation. And you'll see a lot of people frustrated that they can't renew themselves right about now. But I think, or can't feel younger, they'll sort of like be very upset that they can't reverse their age. But basically, when you have combinations like this, especially a Sun-Saturn conjunction, there will be a possibility of new technology, new processes, but also actually more government control. It's not really something which is like a Sun-Saturn conjunction. It's sort of like it's optimism, but it's optimism for work. And if Saturn is strong, and Saturn is much stronger in this sign than the Sun is, it'll tend to cause either uprisings or dissatisfaction with government. That's going to continue for the next couple of years. But this is sort of like not necessarily the start of it, but the maturation of it. The other thing we want to look for when we're looking at combinations like this is that Jupiter and Venus, and I noticed this yesterday, Jupiter and Venus there's a phenomenon in Indian astrology called hemmed in by malefics. It's called the Papakatara Yoga. That's the technical name for it. And so Venus is over here, is right behind Jupiter, but when it moves but at a wide spectrum, at a wider vision point, is hemmed in between Saturn and Mars. So that's a particularly, so Jupiter and Venus are great optimistic planets, but they're hemmed in by the two the planets that encourage violence, as Mars, and the planet that restricts things or confines things, and that's Saturn. So I think one of the things you should probably be careful about is don't get into arguments with people. Try not to get into arguments with people, especially with K2 down here. K2 can cause problems in trade with people if you get into arguments with them. It does obstruct trade a bit. And again, we do have Jupiter in Pisces, so the unemployment rate is doing pretty well. Venus in conjunction with Jupiter, it'll do better over the next few months. But I think when you see Venus hitting Rahu and aspected by Saturn again, which will be in about a month or so, and also Jupiter moving into the same sign of Aries, I think you'll see the unemployment rate affected too. So this is, again, the challenging times can allow us to be very inventive and um, very, and to progress more quickly than we normally would. So we'll figure out alternative ways of making money legally. But basically, I think one of the things you'll have to look at over the next few months is this moon K2. This K2 in Libra. It's not going to leave really until around late October. And also, so that'll still affect trade. And it's going to be entering Chitra Nakshatra, which is actually a more destructive nakshatra than Swati is. Swati scatters like the wind. Chitra is the building blocks of the physical world. So I'm not optimistic that we'll see and anything more than a temporary abatement of a lot of the destructive energies that we've seen. I'm not seeing major wars in this chart, so that's good news. I'm not seeing any nuclear confrontations. However, the United States will get kind of aggressive within about a year, month and a half. It'll be confronted with military problems. I think we can avoid war. I think a lot of countries can avoid war with us, but again, we're going to have really about 6 months of pretty high tension in the United States. It's already starting now with this Mars direct and aspecting the United States first house. Other parts of the world, a lot of the European Union is going to have domestic problems. The UK is going to have domestic problems. Even countries like Turkey will have a little bit of violence, a little bit of aggression, and among the public. And also, you'll probably see Russia having some internal strife. Both long term, I think Russia is going to come out, and again, I'm not, this isn't an astrological prediction. It's not an ideological prediction. I think Russia will get what it set out to get in the war on Ukraine, and that is it will get some territories back. But I also think we have I'm just trying to think of a good way to say this without taking everybody off, but you know what, I don't know if I can. It won't be resolved. It won't be fully resolved because there'll still be this feeling of tension between Russia and the rest of the world. So it's going to be a challenging couple of years. I'm not going to, at least this year in particular, I think we can avoid a major war, at least from what I've seen in the chart. I saw a Western astrologer predict war in 2027. I'm not sure I agree with that. I'll have to look at that a little bit more carefully. But the United States Mahadishas are wrong for war. It's just really not. It's not something the United States does when it's in this kind of a major planetary period. So that's why I have problems with it coming so quickly. Um, okay, so let's get back to individual planets and charts. I've pontificated enough about the state of the world. So let's go back to Aries. So as I said, Aries is going to be really aggressive, wanting to make a lot of progress financially, and be kind of bellicose right now. Also, emotionally, it'll be a little bit detached. You really won't care whose feelings it hurts all that much. And when you have these kinds of patterns over here, watch out for air problems. Saturn's in Aquarius, K2 and Moon are in Libra. Those are both air signs, so we're going to have to watch out for accidents in the air. But let's get back to Aries. So you should watch out for accidents or for hurting the feelings of spouse or relationship partners. The other situation you have is with the sun being in the 10th house, career life for Aries looks pretty good. There may be a rebirth of career activity for this sign. And essentially, there's a lot of slowness in terms of financial gains, but that'll perk up when Venus and Jupiter when Venus goes into Pisces within about 5 days. So you'll start to see some savings and some financial growth for this sign. For Taurus, Taurus has Mars in the first house. The Lord of the first house is Venus, which will be exalted within a few days. So this will make it a better time for this planet's relationship life. However, Mars in the first house is considered not to be a good pattern for this particular chart. So you'll have to watch out for being hurt by relationship partners or used by relationship partners. I don't like to say that, but that's really what I see in the chart. And the Jupiter-Venus conjunction over here will actually bring in great financial benefits to you and your relationship partner over the next few weeks. For in terms of illnesses, again, watch out for illnesses to family members, especially to siblings. And also in this chart, Sun and Mercury are in the 9th house, so it does give some additional authority to the sign, some good luck to the sign. Venus and Saturn are in the 10th house, so career life should go better for this sign, although it'll require a lot of work. And Jupiter's in the 11th, soon to be joined by Venus, so it'll give a lot of financial growth, but also almost a compulsive tendency to spend. So just be a little careful about that. For Gemini has Mars in the 12th house. So we have a lot of signs, again, like I said, with this Taurus, with this placement of Mars in Taurus, it gives a lot of sexual energy to people. But it also tends to make them a little bit too pliable in relationships, and there'll be arguments with relationship partners or feelings of being detached. It's good for sexual pleasure. This is a kind of a passionate placement for Gemini, but again, I think there's a little bit of manipulation going on here too. For this sign, you have Moon and K2 in the 5th house, so give unusual chances for relationship life, but lovers will seem to be a little bit cold or distant. And also, in terms of finances, you're going to have to be careful about spending too much money. And also, even children lying to you about money or finances, or even trying to steal money from you. Sun and Mercury are in the 8th house. That gives good financial growth. Sun will be in the 9th house, so give good for this particular sign. Sun and Saturn together give fulfillment of desires in terms of educational life, so that's good. Jupiter's in the 10th house. It makes the sign look very authoritative, very knowledgeable, and it'll want to be active. It'll want to be doing things and helping people. Rahu's in the 11th house, famous friends. Mars in the 12th house, like I said. Enjoyable, but really just be careful who you trust. For um, the moon, for Cancer, excuse me, Cancer has the Sun and Mercury in the 7th house. So that gives strong relationship potential for the sign, although relationship partners will seem to be a bit harsh or judgmental. But it gives good communications with the relationship partners. When the sun goes into this sign, it'll give money from inheritances or from unexpected sources, although that will be delayed. Moon and Case were in the 4th house. This sign is going to seem a little bit perplexed or a little bit confused. It'll feel like it's under a lot of pressure for the next couple of days. And it'll be worried really until the end of the week. And at the end of the week, it'll say, okay, I've made the right decision. I need to go where I need to go. For the other sign here, so Sun's in the 7th house. So it gives feeling a great deal. This sign a great feeling of destiny. Excuse me, and also there'll be a need to travel. Jupiter's in the 9th house. Travel for knowledge. The Venus-Saturn conjunction in the 8th house is some worry about family. There's some worry about relationship life, but that's kind of normal right now for this particular sign. And Mars is in the 11th, Rahu's in 10th house. It'll give some career growth. Mars is in the 11th house, so some opposition or fights with friends. Okay, so, but don't worry about that. That'll pass. Leo has the sun in the 6th house, so this is a time for Leo to really get actively engaged in communications and really struggle to communicate and get what it wants, be very clear about what it wants. Moon and Case were in the 3rd house, so it's kind of averse to loss. This essentially wipes out losses for this sign. But there'll still be some confusion about what it wants. And Venus and Saturn are in the 7th house. So this gives commitment in relationship, if not necessarily pleasure in relationship. And Venus is moving in away from the 7th house, so that'll tend to make this sign more more devoted to relationship partners, but less, it'll view relationship life as stable, but not necessarily happy. But it'll be secure and predictable. And we're looking at Jupiter and in the 8th house. Again, a lot of knowledge, unexpected financial gains, and those will come to fruition really towards the end of the week. There'll be some really strong financial gains, what I would call unearned income. Rahu's in the 8th house. Rahu's in the 9th house, excuse me. And if Rahu's in the 9th and the Lord of Rahu is in the 10th, this gives good career luck. The Lord of the 11th house of gains is in the 6th house, so there will be financial gains, but you'll have to work hard at it. And that's it for Leo. For Virgo is going to have kind of an interesting week, so it'll go from feeling like it's hamstrung to being very optimistic and very popular over the next week. A lot of opportunities are going to come to Virgo. They'll be presented as a lot of work, but this will be an excellent time for Virgo to write. It'll be an excellent time for Virgo to expand its base of allies and gain new allies. It'll be an excellent time for business opportunities for this sign because Sun's moving out of the 5th house into the 6th, and you'll see kind of a rebirth of this of this sign's energy. Um, you'll see older people or more traditional people opposing this sign, just because the thinking skills will be very strong. K2 in the second house, again, there'll be problems with expression for the sign, though. It's just really something that Virgo's been struggling with for the past year or so. So it manages to say the wrong things at the wrong time. Just be aware that you're going to have to repeat yourself several times in order to make your point understood. But it's very good for intuitive ability. And finally, Mars is in the ninth house, not the best planet. Rahu's in the eighth, so there'll be some frustration with financial gains. But if you stick with it, if you fight for what you want, you'll definitely get it. So Virgo as a sign really isn't. This may strike a lot of Western Virgos as being untrue, but Eastern Virgos, the Western Virgos are really Leos, so they're more used to being in control of things than Eastern Virgos are. Eastern Virgo is a mutable sign, it's a very flexible sign. It doesn't like to have to fight, it doesn't like to have to take a steady stand, but that's really the only way you're going to increase your financial growth over the next few weeks and fulfill your desires. So just don't back down. Virgos are advised not to back down over the next month or so. Mercury, the Lord of the 10th house, career life, and career life will experience growth, more confidence, especially after the sun moves to the next sign of next sign in conjunction with Saturn. And you should see fewer losses, fewer delays in getting what you want. For Libra, K2 and Moon are in the first house in Libra. This can actually give unexpectedly good results for Libra. And I'll explain why. This forms a kind of a special combination in a Vedic chart. It's a combination between the Lord of an angle and the Lord of a trine. It's an angular Lord in a trinal house with a node. So that creates a Raj Yoga or a special planetary combination. So Libra's instincts are going to be really, really good this week. And again, as long as you keep focused on what you want and don't get distracted by all this activity in the seventh house. So like, well, I'm not sure if I should take this action. I'm not sure if I should take this action. It'll be risky for me. I might lose money with Mars in the eighth house. Don't worry about that. I think Venus is in the fifth house, along with Saturn in this chart. It's about to be exalted. And it's a good week for this sign to get back to work, especially after Thursday, Friday this week. It'll love work after Thursday and Friday this week. And relationship life still be kind of problematic because Saturn's aspect in Rahu. So you'll feel like you're not in the right relationship, or that your relationship partner is really difficult to please. But that's going to be the situation for the next few months. So don't let that get you down. Communication wise at home, things will get much better. And Mars in the eighth house, again, watch out for relationship partners trying to take advantage of you. I think overall career life should be much better for Libra. For Scorpio, Scorpio has no planets in the first house, but the Lord of the first house is in the seventh, and that's usually good for relationships, although they'll tend to be a little bit troubling or a little bit more passionate than wise. Let's put it that way. Jupiter's in the fifth house, so that's good for opportunities for striking up love affairs. Venus and Saturn are in the fourth, but it's also good for, let's say if Scorpio is interested in politics or in speculation, it's also a good time for the sign speculatively or politically. Sun is in the third house, so this planet will have a lot of courage. It'll tend to take a little bit of that courage away as as the signs change. The sun changes signs this week, and Venus goes into Pisces. So you're going to see some increased luck for this sign, some increased opportunities over the next month. And Rahu's in the sixth house, so enemies are tough, but they're not unconquerable. And Ketu's in the 12th house with the moon, so this will actually give advantages to the sign if it is willing to abandon old ways of doing things or abandon old systems of belief. Okay, so over the next couple of days in particular, try shaking off some preconceived notions you have about your limitations. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius has Sun in the second house along with Mercury, so its communication skills have been pretty good. Its desire level has been pretty controlled, but you'll start to see that desire level will still tend to be controlled, but home life will get happier, more more pleasant, more sweet. Rahu's in the fifth house. Children are still a little bit problematic. There'll still be some trouble in getting recognized for things you've done well. Mars is in the sixth. You'll have a lot of enemies, like from people you know from the past. And Ketu and Moon are in the 11th house, gives financial gains from unexpected sources. But again, do not trust people. You know, I can't say that strongly enough for Sagittarius. Do not trust friends. Do not trust people. Keep your own counsel. For Capricorn, Sun's in the first house along with Mercury. That'll change. The Sun will move to the second house, so that'll give you a lot more gumption to go after what you want financially. Jupiter's in the third house. Good diplomatic skills, especially strong when Venus enters there. So you'll be able to charm the birds from the trees over the next few weeks. Rahu's in the fourth house, so still be this feeling of unsettlement at home. And Mars is in the fifth house, so it'll be good for financial gains, good for financial growth. Seventh house Lord is in the 10th house with Ketu, so that'll give unexpected career opportunities. But again, there's always this problem of being not noticed or ignored by both spouse and work life. So that's a perpetual problem for this sign. But I think overall, this sign will start to see some improvement in terms of financial growth and also in terms of skills, exhibition of skills and acknowledgement of skills. For Aquarius, Aquarius has Venus and Saturn in the first house. That's a Raj Yoga. That's a really great combination. Saturn will stay in the first house when Venus goes to the second house. Great combination for money. It's the Lord of the ninth house. And the fourth house in conjunction with the Lord of the second and the 11th house. It's what's called a Dana Yoga in Indian astrology. Dana is connected with wealth, so it's a very wealth-producing combination for the sign. So your sun's in Aquarius or your moon's in Aquarius or your rising signs in Aquarius, it should be a good time for you. And also Rahu's in the third house, so it's a very strong desire nature for this sign. Also, one more thing to keep in mind, there'll be this interest in music and art because of Saturn going through Denisha and in technology. So this will be kind of an interesting few months for you. But Mars is in the fourth house. So again, some domestic problems show up with this combination. Some more arguments than you'd probably like. And Ketu and Moon sit in the ninth house. So there'll be a change or shift in learning patterns or even in terms of traditions you follow. If you have a gut feeling, follow your gut feeling. That's really the best I can tell you because your instincts will be better than what you learn in books right now. But It also does indicate a change in education. You'll get more interested in trade life. You'll get more interested in spiritual life. You'll get more interested in learning from different figures than you've learned before, than those from whom you've learned before. Jupiter, let's look at Pisces. Jupiter's in the first house, Rahu's in the second house. So this is a good combination. Venus and Jupiter will be in the first house, which is great. So to give unexpected income developments and also fulfillment of desires for the sign. Mars, Rahu's in the second, so there'll still be this continuing desire for more. And Mars, Rahu's in the second, Mars is in the third, so strong desire nature shows up for the Pisces. And also kind of a sanctimoniousness, I would tend to say, because Venus and Jupiter will be there. It'll be a little bit more like, don't you want to be wise? Don't you want to follow the rules? That kind of thing. Moon and Ketu are in the eighth house. It's not a good time for investments for this sign, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I would stay away from investing for this sign for the next few months, really, to be honest with you. And probably not until October, but especially right now. And if you can pull money out of investments, that's tricky advice because each individual chart is going to be a little bit different. So I'm not gonna make that suggestion, but if you find yourself losing money, you're not gonna gain money anytime soon. So just be aware of that. The ninth house has no planets in it, but the Lord of the ninth is in the third, so that does indicate fulfillment of desires. And Sun and Mercury in the 11th house are good for exerting authority. Sun will go into the 12th house pretty soon, so this sign will become a little bit shy, but that Venus-Jupiter conjunction will make it very, very happy and very, very easy to approach. So I think this will be actually a bit of a relief for Pisces. Pisces has been undergoing a little bit of isolation or separateness over the past few months. It'll start connecting with people again really, really soon. Now let's go to the astro mapping, and I'm going to see if I can make it bigger. Okay, I hate it when it does this. All right, so let's go over here. All right. Okay, let's get this down a little bit. Yeah, we'll put it. So maybe I can expand it. So, all right, so we have let's see where. All right, so a little bit of panic in Hawaii. I don't know if that's connected with volcanic activity in Hawaii, but a little bit of panic. I think you'll also see a little bit of financial issues in Hawaii. I'm trying hard to read this line, so forgive me when my face forward. Yeah, it's a moon line. It's a moon Rahu conjunction over Hawaii. So, and Rahu has to do with government, so there should be a shift in government. Mercury's going through that line, so we actually should hear something from Hawaii over the next few days. Sun and Saturn are on the west coast of the United States, on the west coast of Canada. We should be hearing something from Alaska too over the next few days. So we've heard about the balloon being shut down, but or the craft, we're not sure it's a balloon being shut down over Alaska. There's a Sun-Saturn conjunction over Western Canada, and it's touching on the Western United States. And there's a Mars line, if I'm not mistaken, running through here. So I'd advise people to watch out for really adverse weather patterns, including earthquakes along the west coast of California. This isn't as strong as the earthquake pattern that was over Turkey, and here we go over Turkey right here. You can see that Mars line is still over Syria, and um, so we'll probably be hearing news about the earthquake for another week or so. I'm tempted to say there might be another quake, but lesser magnitude in Turkey in roughly the same region, or um, a little bit further south in Syria. But I don't want to wish that on anybody. Um, there's so that Sun Saturn line, so we do have to watch out a little bit. Now the Mars line is kind of far off the coast in California, so I don't want to get people to be um, all that concerned about it. It does reach down though to Chile and Tierra del Fuego, so that region is a little bit in danger. So just be careful. Like I said, for adverse weather, it doesn't necessarily mean that every adverse weather pattern has to be an earthquake. Venus is in, so heavy rains are probably promised for the Midwest through Texas because of this Venus line going through here, and pretty much heavy precipitation patterns throughout the Midwest, all the way over to um, between West Texas and roughly into, I believe that's Alabama. And so this entire belt between North Dakota and Ohio looks like um, it's good. I mean, it's Jupiter and Venus, so it's good. But Venus also brings precipitation, so that's why I'm warning a little bit about that. Rahu is over. So we have a descending Mercury line. Oops, and what line is this? No, it's a descending Mercury line. It's going through Washington, D.C., right through Washington. So we're going to hear a lot of news about Washington, a lot of news about Puerto Rico, a lot of news about Guyana and Venezuela, and all the way down to Brazil, and maybe even Uruguay and Paraguay. It looks really interesting. I think one of the things, Jupiter's over here, passing through Nicaragua, and also really close to Peru. So there may be some legal activity or even expansions of um, of government reach in those areas. Rahu is really right next to the moon in this chart, and is passing close to Canada and the continental United States, and also down by Puerto Rico, Guyana, Venezuela, down through Bolivia, and down into Argentina. So we're going to hear. So I think there are going to be some um, popular revolts is really too strong a word, but popular protests in those parts of the world. And Saturn is still ticking on Brazil's east coast, so that should be a little bit difficult for Brazil. Now, if we go over here, Mars is passing over. Looks like the Cape Verde, Cabo Verde, and also next to pretty close to the Canaries. There's a Venus line, so we can see some potential flooding activity in Western Africa towards the end of the week near Ghana. And also we have, let me just see, England looks like it's, France looks like it's going to have some, and Norway look like they're, and even Germany look like they're going to have some protests and or some continuing protests, some demand for reforms. A lot of this, I don't know if you've been following the European news, but there have been some protests in England over immigration policies. And I think a lot of those protests, so the United States is concerned about this border. The European Union has been taking in a lot of refugees from Syria, from Ukraine. It's they're being swamped really, and again, it's not the refugees' fault. You know, they're caught in war. They're caught in really bad situation. The earthquake only exacerbates the situation. But and there may even be some more fighting between Syria and neighboring nations. Even Iran may be involved in some kind of internal conflict, and some government, some increased Iran and Iraq, and some increased governmental suppression in Iran is what I'm seeing from this chart. Now, if we go over to, and that Rahu line is heading down, so there's going to be some panic on really down through South Africa, Zimbabwe, Sudan, Egypt. So look for those countries if you're interested in world politics in terms of some problems. And finally, as we get over here, we have Mars is right over here, is passing through Western Turkey, up through Russia and Ukraine, and there's a sun line over here. So Iran looks like it's going to have some major problems over the next week, I think. Venus is passing through, Venus and Mercury are passing right through India. I think you're going to see some heavy rains in India towards the end of the week. Mercury, we have a Jupiter line passing through Cambodia, Khmer, and that looks okay. That looks like it'll be okay. We'll be getting a lot of communications, but that'll adversely affect trade for a while. Moon is over China. This, to me, this signals another disease outbreak or another problem with people. I'm a little bit worried about China in terms of earthquake activity because of this Rahu line passing over it. And I'm also worried that they'll try something over the next couple of months in Taiwan, but you know, I can't do anything about that. But this, it's going to be the center of attention. So is Indonesia, so is Western Australia. Japan has a Mercury line running through it, so we're going to be getting a lot of news from Japan as well. And finally, Sun and Saturn. So we're going to see more tightening of controls in Australia and Central Australia, and Venus lines running through near New Zealand. New Zealand looks like it's going to be okay, but we are going to see some protests in New Zealand. So that's it for me for this week. I'll be back again next week. I will be putting up new posts with remedial measures, and also with new interpretational techniques. So again, I do have a school. I would encourage you to contact me about the details of the school, and I look forward to hearing from you. If you're interested in submitting to Saptarishi Astrology, please contact me as well. Again, 508-525-0001 is the easiest way to contact me. And I look forward to seeing you next week. All right, namaste, everyone. I love you all, and thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. I appreciate each and every one of you. We're over 500. We're heading towards 1,000. Let's keep up the great work. Thank you very much, folks. Bye-bye now. And stay healthy. Take care of yourselves.